Having a great opportunity today to talk to a real woman on the rise. She is a CEO. She's also featured in D Magazine in the CEO issue. Hello, Royalyn Reid.
Hey, Sybil.
How are you?
Fine. Thank you.
Now, tell me about CMI, because we're going to talk about that, and then we'll talk about how you got there.
Okay.
Tell us what CMI is.
Well, Consumer Market Insights, CMI, is a performance management company. We focus on project management, marketing research, training. We also do some conference event management.
And you are the president and CEO.
Yes, I am.
So, and this is Dallas-based.
Dallas-based, but we're also in Washington, D.C.
Oh, la-di-da. All right. So how does one become a CEO of from what my research has indicated, a multi-million-dollar company now over the years? How did this start with the company with you and your husband?
Well, you know, Sybil, it's really interesting because I started out as a scientist at Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Uh-huh.
Worked there for so many years, and then I left the workforce to start a family.
Right.
And once my husband understood I was going to be the primary caretaker and not the only caretaker, I just continued to work, did some consulting work, and finally we said, you know what, let's see what we can do to grow this business further.
Okay. So now you start a business, and how does because you go as a scientist, how does the consumer and marketing part come into your life?
Well, interesting enough, just like many people, I knew my craft. I knew marketing research, I knew consumer insights because we did that. I did that all, knew the business day in and day out with testing and products with women. So you take a concept of something you know and what you do best, but then what you have to do is really learn the business aspect. And so I spent a lot of time with the Small Business Administration, the Small Business Development Center here in Dallas, as well as Washington, D.C., and learn those other things that I didn't know so I could combine with what I did well.
When you're developing a company like this and you're talking about consumer and market research, how do you determine what that need is that you have the ability to fulfill that need?
Very good question, because you have to go out and find out what people need. What is the need and what kind of solution can you bring in that market? And that's what we did well.
So how did you do, and I'm not taking away from your most important job, which is raising your children, but how do you do that as a stay-at-home mom who's working in the house and raising your children? How did you develop that instinct and know that, you had to go out there and find this and develop it from there?
Now, when we first started off and when my kids were young, that was important to be the primary caretaker and do the room mom thing. But interesting enough, a lot of times I did that, could drop them off, and then I was there to pick them up. And a lot of times I could work in the evening late.
And so was your education, did you change your focus for graduate school and go on and do some other things?
Well, I already had my advanced degree, so I finished all of my education prior to having children. But the interesting thing is when you start a business, cash is what you don't really have.
Right.
And what you need. And that's where even you have to be creative and innovative. So my husband worked at IBM, so he could build programs and things that we really needed that we probably couldn't afford. But in order how are we going to get a team to help us once the business started growing? Well, I began to identify workers and people, employees, through my involvement, room moms. Because there were a lot of people like me who phased out of the workforce, who worked at Fortune 500 companies, who could do anything. And then you could also look at the skills they did. They could plan any activity for the school with their eyes closed. So that's who we targeted. They were looking for flexible hours, and the extra income was good. And then they knew how to do business because they had been in corporate America. So that's how we started off with our first sales force.
We're talking to Royalyn Reid, and she is the president and CEO of CMI, and it's based here in Dallas, Texas. Also has an office in Washington, D.C. So you and your husband start off, and you're working on this business, and you bring these other women who have already been in the workforce, and so now they're getting back into it.
That's right.
But you're working out of your house?
Initially, we did for so many years because we wanted to wait until the money started coming in. And so a lot of times people get ahead of themselves. Our clients, they didn't care where our business was. They cared about were we producing and giving them what they needed in excellence, and we were.
So how did you find your clients, or how did they find you?
Our first client, believe it or not, on our own, turned out to be DFW Airport.
Wow.
And then the city of Dallas.
Wow.
So as
oh, you don't start too small.
But even before that, that was with our own clients. But we did subcontract work and work as a consultant. So when you can work under other successful companies, that's when you learn. And that's where a lot of people make mistakes. It's okay to start with baby steps.
Yeah.
Get your foundation. Get a strong foundation. So through learning and education, as I mentioned, through the resources of SBA and
so the Small
SBDC,
Business Administration played a big part in this as well.
That and the Small Business Development Center, a lot of people underestimate that or forget about it because those services are free.
Right.
Now we say they're free, but we've paid for them through our tax dollars.
Sure, yeah.
And so,
but you might as well take advantage of where your money is going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so and even now I still take advantage of them because to get that knowledge that they have, what are you going to do? Hire another person? But when you can go to someone and begin to use your resources well.
How do you capture the attention of one of the world's largest airports or one of the world's largest cities, such as the city of Dallas? How did that come about?
And again, I can't stress enough about using your resources. Two of the most powerful resources I have now is I'm very involved with the DFW Minority Business Development Council.
And every large city has a minority business development council.
Most of them do, yeah. And also through the Women's Business Council Southwest. And now I'm very involved with the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. We bank on a national level. So when you get involved with that, those organizations are in place to help you. And also their members are some of the greatest corporations and agencies around. It's all about relationship, as you know. So you go to wherever your client or potential client is, and you begin with the relationship and also the knowledge that they can provide as well. And then I just get involved.
And so, but these relationships aren't developed on the golf course the way, for years we were always taught, you got to learn to do this and play with the guys and do all of these things. These were normal business type relationships you developed at lunches and over board meetings and what have you.
Absolutely. And when you get more involved, then you end up going to the events. They do have golf events. They have galas. When you go to those events as well, you begin to see the people. And usually, that 20-80 rule, it's usually the same 20 people who go, so the world gets very small. But when you can begin to do that in relationship, because what people forget is businesses are operated by people. So it's people who hire people. And so everyone, when they're on that hiring side, they want to make sure that they're hiring someone who can do the job because their name is on the line.
Right.
And so that's why those relationships are so important. And for us, we take that seriously. So, and that's what I tell all of our clients and potential clients. We're representing ourselves, and we're going to do right by ourselves, but we're representing you and other people who are coming behind us. Because, girl, as you know, it only takes one to mess it up for everyone.
Yeah, and then that whole domino effect happens, right? Yeah.
Yes.
We're talking to Royalyn Reid. She is the president and CEO of CMI based here in Dallas, and we're going to come back. And I want to talk a little bit more about not only your role as president and CEO, but your employees and your developing relationships, as well as being a working mom.
Sounds good.
Okay. We'll be back. Hi, and welcome back to TJTV. I'm Sybil Wilkes from the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and talking to Royalyn Reid. She is the president and CEO of CMI. CMI is Consumer and Marketing Insights. Okay. So you started this with other moms who were in the same situation as you, raising your kids as the primary caretaker and giver of the kids and dropping them off at school. So you developed these relationships and you hired these women to work for you.
Yes.
So tell me about the kind of decisions you make and how you choose the people you choose to represent you as they're going out and to represent CMI.
Good question, Sybil. I think that's so important because once you start a company, initially it's yourself a lot of times.
Right.
But after that, anyone who works with you, they're representing you, an extension of you.
So that's the same thing that the companies that you're subcontracting
absolutely.
for. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's the same concept.
Thing, yeah.
So we want quality people. So when we first started is seeing these women do things as room moms or volunteering on committees, first of all, were they committed there? And how did they act? What was their attitude? And what did they produce?
Right.
And so it was really interesting because they were being interviewed and didn't even know they were.
Sure. Yeah. And that's something we should all learn, because you never know who's going to be watching you and seeing how you interact or act on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And so that made it very easy to do that. I was very active in my church as well as other organizations. So once again, you get to see people in their natural habitat, and they're not necessarily trying to perform for you.
They're not auditioning or interviewing.
That's right.
You're just seeing how they do work. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is the best way when you can do it.
So what's the best advice that you give to people who are asking you, how do I get to be a Royalyn Reid? How do I get to be in the CEO issue of D Magazine, that kind of thing? What's the best advice you give to men and women who are looking to start their business, especially in this economic climate?
Absolutely. The main thing is you want to build a strong foundation. So often is you want to work around your passion and what you do best and well. To learn business and get a good foundation. Another thing, learning and wisdom is the key. It never stops, because even where we are now, I have advisors, people who continually to help me, not only here in Dallas, but in Washington, D.C., all over the country. You can learn, keep learning, keep growing as well. And the other thing a lot of people forget is don't forget to help other people. Now we hear that as minorities and African Americans, but it really does work. So everywhere I go, who else can I help? Because as I'm trying to help someone, there are people who are still helping me today.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you were talking about the SBA and helping people, because those two things really work together. And as a matter of fact, your relationship with the SBA really laid the groundwork and the foundation for some changes within the Small Business Administration. Is that right? When you and also changed your location too, because you started watching that.
Absolutely. Because we do a lot of work not only here locally, but we also do work with the federal government. We work with the Department of Commerce, Department of Transportation, HUD. So therefore, I'm in Washington, D.C. at least once a month. And advocacy is just important to me. So I really just got involved and begun to meet people in the U.S. Senate Small Business and Entrepreneur Committee with Senator Mary Landrieu. And just getting relationship with them and find out what's going on, but also just being a voice. Letting them hear what's going on with me as a small business and sharing about everyone else I know here, real stories with real faces. Then I had the opportunity, I was invited to actually testify at a hearing that led to the Small Jobs Bill Act a few years ago. So that was extremely rewarding to not only just share with them what's going on in the grassroots in this area, but around, and to be that voice before the bill goes into act, so to give them some thoughts of what could be tweaked and what could happen. Because so often we get involved after the act or the bill is in place, and we've all heard the term, it's an act of Congress to change something. So I prefer to be an act of
so you were proactive in terms
I like that.
Of working towards the act.
Absolutely.
What about your family life now? Because this is a business that you and your husband started together, so obviously it is a family business, but your children, because they are a part of this, I would imagine.
Yes, I have teenagers now, so that keeps me very busy. And I can't say enough about my family because they make a lot of sacrifices. It does take a lot of time, and of course I travel as well. But with that, and I also have my mom. My dad recently passed, but they worked with the business as well for a while. So they had their wisdom. They were retired, but they knew things. Everyone loved them as well. So that was a plus. And the biggest thing with the balance as well is how do I incorporate with my kids that they don't despise the business with my being away. And so we find ways to get them involved, to let them know what's going on, and I get to take them on some events. My daughter is older now. She actually got a chance to work on several federal contracts with us. So she was exposed on a national level of what to do, and she had to carry her weight. And she did.
That's great. That's even better. That's even better. This is really a fascinating story. I love to watch people and read stories of success like yours. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, if people want to get more information about you and find out more about CMI and the business and Royalyn Reid, how can they get in touch with you?
Our website is one way, www.thecmiteam.com.
thecmiteam.com.